The new tests kept bad drivers off the road. Wartime bombs, as well as petrol rationing, had a similar effect on everyone else. That meant, for the next few years, this was the closest many people would get to driving.
The International Motor Exhibition at Earl's Court was opened by the Duke of Gloucester. The fact that over 17,000 people attended on the first day proves how car-hungry the post-war public is.
The 1948 Motor Show introduced us to the classic Morris Minor. But just because the war was over, it didn't mean we could have cars just like that. Oh no.
After the war, it was impossible to get cars. I mean, I did in the end manage to get a Morris 1000, but I mean, it was a tremendous amount of you know, pulling strings and everything else. I mean, I was actually racing, and I couldn't get one.
I had a pal who was a stage manager at York Rep, and he had a Morris Cowley. Just had 2 seats, and at the back was this sticky seat, and you open that, and then you could carry 2 or 3 people in the back. Take the birds out. It was quite impressive. That was the beginning of British social life.
It was also the beginning of the 1950s.
Oh, excuse us, we're just admiring your new Morris Oxford.
Most people do. Quite an exciting new look, hasn't it?
What's the performance like?
Excellent. It's got a higher performance engine and a clutchless gear change as an optional extra. It's a quality car.
Cars now changed the way we built our towns. The suburbs spread outwards, courtesy of Austin, Morris, and an army of small boys.
I say, old man, your Cambridge is bang on. Wish I had one.
But British cars still lacked something, and it wasn't just petrol. What we needed was Marilyn Monroe.
She's going to have the best care a car ever had. Put Royal Triton in Cynthia's little tummy.
Right, lady.
Cynthia will just love that Royal Triton.
For Americans in the 50s, the automobile was to become a symbol of a new culture, youth.
Teenagers had their own cars in America, you know. They played out their lives and the dramas of their lives in these cars.
Maybe, baby, you'll be true.
The car is integral to any youth culture in America. I mean, the James Dean youth culture is the Southern California youth culture.
Jimmy.
This was James Dean warning America's youth to drive safely.
I'd like your opinion about fast driving on the highway.
I find myself being very cautious on the highway.
But it didn't work for him. Months later, he died in a high-speed car smash.
Do you have any special advice for the young people who drive?
Take it easy driving. The life you might save might be mine.
Safety was never a big concern for 50s car designers. Instead, the automobile was more than ever a sex object, dripping with sumptuous design and gorgeous styling. These were cars that said, "Look at me."
In the 1950s, it was America's golden age. What they decided to do was to get hold of the consumer's psyche and take it for a very, very, very long walk.
They had electric windows, they had power steering, they had air conditioning, they had push-button radios, remote boot releases, curved glass, twin headlights.
Designers cared, I don't know, about style then. They're works of art, some of them.
A magnificent Eldorado town car by Cadillac.
Ensemble by Christian Dior of Paris.
The Thunderbird in '55 really, really changed the game completely.
Thunderbird, the finest of fine cars, the last word in wish it were mine cars.
There was a girl in my high school who had a '56 T-Bird, which is the most coveted of all the old T-Birds. And her name was Debbie Stimler, which is inconceivably memorable. And she had a personalized license plate even then that said Stimler 56 on the back.
By the end of the 50s, the Ford Motor Company alone had sold 50 million cars worldwide. The Americans were way ahead of the game. Their love affair with cars was rock solid. But with the dawn of the 60s, it was now our turn.
Britain did copy the idea of the sort of Americans' 50s, early 60s fantasy car. We watered the fantasy down in a very British way. And sort of, well, let's not get too carried away here.
This is the land animal that has taken to life afloat. Two-way traffic on a wavy highway where there's no such thing as a speed cop or a hold-up at the lights.
1960s Britain was home to 10 million cars, the first true era of mass ownership. Boring black cars just weren't cool anymore, though Brits drew the line at calling the boot a trunk. Previously, our cars had been called Morris and Oxford. Now there were Zephyrs and Zodiacs. The Vauxhall Cresta was a straight American rip-off. But the Mini, Britain's first mobile fashion accessory, was definitely ours.
But look, darling, it goes so beautifully with this fabulous dress of mine. It matches, it really does.
And then there was the Cortina.
Signs on. Wagons, row!
The Cortina sold as an ice-cool fantasy, though it was more often seen in the junior management carpool. But it did represent the new era, a time in the 60s and 70s when British mums and dads first put their kids firmly on the back seat and told them to shut up.
I know that my mother first said the word fuck in the car, and I'd never heard her use the word fuck before. It was a fantastic moment. There was a kind of silent agreement to not actually pass comment on it, but we were delighted.
There is a certain culture of the back seat of a car, you know, watching the world go by, playing games, you know, playing cricket with number plates. Try explaining that one.
When I was a kid, my dad had an old Bentley. You'd sit in there, and I would always sit behind my dad, and my brother would sit sort of 3 miles to my left, and really old leather seats, original leather seats. Every time we went round a corner, we'd just slide, because there was no car seats in those days, no seat belts. You just slide all the way along the bench seats in the back, and it was really good fun.
Here's a family taking their first run down a motorway.
The big revolution during this time was the arrival of motorways. The first service stations came complete with well-dressed waitresses, live piano music, and silver service.
Something romantic about service stations, something romantic about... It says road to me, you know, even though it's not America. There's a temporary nature of it, a transient nature of people coming and going. You don't really stay at a motorway service station, you know.
There weren't many service stations in the early days, so if you were going on holiday, you had to leave the house prepared for a marathon.
We used to go on holidays to Cornwall. We'd kind of get up at 4 a.m. and be bundled into the car. Of course, we were supposed to go to sleep for 2 or 3 hours, but of course we didn't. And then, you know, there'd be some picnic by the side of the road, somewhere sort of probably just this side of Exeter, where we'd have boiled eggs and coffee from a thermos.
We'd go to Cornwall in my dad's car from Chester. It'd take about 3 weeks to get there. We'd put the tent up, have a cup of tea, and then start heading back.
Here comes summer, and off come the Raps for another season of carefree caravanning.
The caravan had been around for decades, but these were its halcyon days.
If the caravan gives up the ghost on the motorway, you know who the women will blame.
It used to take a long time to get the caravan and the car together to go on holiday. But I don't know that he particularly enjoyed doing it all, but he did it. I remember going to Norway once and going round these roads that had precipitous drops down the sides, and all you could hear was my mother screaming, going, "Brian, will you slow down?" And he'd be going, "I'm going at 5 miles an hour, Jane."
My dad used to try and shut us up by saying the first person to see the sea gets an ice cream or something, and we could be like 4 hours away from the sea at this point. But, you know, we were like, where?
I do remember a lot of going to the seaside and things like that, and the misery of car sickness.
I would get in a car and I would vomit. It was horrendous. And then I'd have those little travel sickness tablets that were raspberry. They were small and pink. And I'd only have to take one of those before getting in a car, and then I was sick.
Jackie'd usually be sick after about a minute, and then she would be sick, and then the smell would make us all feel sick, so we'd all be sick. And it'd be like 7 of us all lined up, all puking up at the side of the road.
And I remember always having to have the rear window open, sitting by the window and having my nose out of the window like a dog just to get some fresh air and stuff. It's crap, isn't it?
Despite the mental scars it frequently left behind, the motoring holiday is stitched into the social fabric of the 60s and 70s. But it wasn't all fun. In fact, driving during this period was often no fun at all. The breathalyzer was a blow to all drink drivers in '67.
So who's the stupid git now?
Then there were new speed restrictions. Before, there hadn't been any limit at all on motorways. Even Jimmy Savile went all serious on us.
Clunk, click, every trip.
Driving could be miserable in the 70s. Unless, of course, you were a man, had a bird by your side, and supercharged testosterone glands down your pants.
Oh my God. And she's got a hand on the handbrake as well.
It's just so overt, so patronising, so basic.
What she's holding there is really quite apparent.
She's got a penis in her hand. It cannot be filthy.
The way she's sort of handling that brake.
This picture says to me that any man that drives an MG will get a hand job.
Ain't no big thing to wait for the bell to ring.
In the 1970s, feminist values were beginning to catch on. But as far as women's lib was concerned, car culture was the land that time forgot.
She doesn't care that the seats have been ergonomically designed with extra legroom in the front. She just knows she's comfortable.
Let's drive into the 1973 Motor Show at Earls Court.
When it came to the annual motor show, women knew their place, and their place was on the bonnet.
I can remember in the 70s going along to motor shows, and there would be very scantily clad women sort of leaning over Aston Martins and Jaguar E-types and things, and we would all kind of hoping things might drop out and fail, which sometimes they did on purpose, just to get some pictures.
Cars were always a bloke's thing, and blokes like women, and if you attach women to cars, then cars become even more attractive.
Beautiful, isn't it?
TVR, the sports car manufacturer, actually had naked ladies on their motor show stand at Motor Show to promote, shall we say, their cars.
Sexism in motoring advertising reached its zenith with the adverts that Ford ran for the Mark I Capri in the early 70s.
Go ahead, dream some more.
They sold the car on the basis that if the chap bought it, not only would he pull one attractive-looking woman, but he'd pull three and better fit them all in his Capri and drive off to a life of ecstasy in the sunset.
We laugh at it now, but we were there, lusting after these cars. I wanted a Capri 3-litre GXL. You know, my life was not complete without it.
But that's what it was. It was selling the lie that, you know, you're going to become this man about town with all these lovely ladies. And people bought the lie. Maybe I did. I don't know.
Can't you look where you're going?
It's just come out of nowhere.
It just came out of nowhere.
I've nothing much to offer.
Some people approach the driving test with apprehension, but there's no need to be frightened.
There's nothing much to take. I'm an absolute beginner.
When walking along a road, make sure the cow is between you and the traffic.
But I'm absolutely sane.
From the late 70s and into the 80s, kids who'd grown up on the back seat of Dad's car suddenly wanted their own. We had our own youth culture now, a youth culture that prized a driving licence more than anything else.
I mean, that must be hilarious being exam instructor. Your biggest sort of, clientele, whatever, are 17-year-old girls. What a fantastic job for an old, doddery old man.
I had a driving instructor whose nickname was Nervous Nev. He used to have a packet of Raffles cigarettes on the dashboard, which he used to lunge for whenever he got particularly upset, and a packet of Polos. So the Polo would be your treat if you're doing particularly well and not upsetting him.
Oh, look behind before you pull out! In the mirror!
Don't shout at me!
Well, keep your mind on the job!
And hit it.
Oh, now you're slowing down again.
I'm not.
I think it was a rite of passage. It was like, right, tick, done that. I can drive, that's a skill.
Thank you. I shan't ask you to carry out that exercise again. Please drive on when you're ready.
And I remember this examiner getting out of the car and sort of walking off with his clipboard. And I remember this kind of feelings of violence that I had towards him. I just thought, you know, it's too simple for you to walk away from this situation and continue with your life, you know. How dare you leave me, you know, and tell me I failed my test.
The second time, I failed for being too hesitant. And people who've passed first time, they think it's easy, they don't understand. That then when you fail twice, you think, well, I can't win. How am I ever going to find an examiner who likes everything that I'm doing?
Well, that's the end of your test, Mrs. Bell, and I'm pleased to tell you you've passed.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my husband will be pleased.
The day I got my driver's license was the best day of my young life.
I was just ecstatic. I was so happy.
And I thought, right, I'm going to break all the rules now and have my elbow up on the door, I put my arm inside the steering wheel. I thought, right, I can drive and I can do everything wrong. I've been so good just to pass this test. I'm going to break all the rules.
The biggest thing that did it for me was the first time I ever drove a car on my own on the road. I was so excited and I couldn't believe, you know, when you look next door and there's nobody there, you think, oh my God, it's me, I'm there on my own. And that was really excellent.
When you first start driving, I think you've got that willingness to drive anywhere. Like, I was 17, 18, so me and my friends began down the pub, and it was like, it's all right, lads, I'll drive, even though it means spending 4 hours in the pub drinking tonic waters or probably lemonade at the time or something. You want to be driving. You want to be out at 11 o'clock at night coming back from the pub and you're the guy with the car, as opposed to the drunken louts that you're ferrying around, and you've got petrol money.
I had never felt so, you know, excited and free. Basically, it was another way to get away from mom and dad and get away from the whole thing. And now you had this license that allowed you to do just that.
Freedom was great, but the 80s car-owning democracy came at a price. And that price was gridlock, superbly demonstrated in the new M25.
And you...
Frustrates me. Life is terribly precious. Every second you get is precious, and I don't want to waste it sitting in a traffic jam.
Still, if you lived in town, you didn't care about motorway jams. All you cared about was the automotive style statement of the decade. It was Britain's first hot hatch, the Golf GTI.
It was my first car. It was my everything.
It said so much more about you than cash ever could.
Love must always...
It was just image, status. If you had a Golf, you were it.
Quite a few people, particularly in Hampstead Garden suburb, had Golf GTIs, and they know who they are. There's no point in hiding.
Our PE teacher at school turned up with one, and he was, well, he had an MGB before that. He was the sort of man who liked to drive cars that were noticed. He had a white Golf convertible GTI, and we'd all ride round to the staff car park and like lean forward on our BMX handlebars, just staring and going, yeah, totally, it is really cool.
The car said something about your lifestyle. It said something about your personality. It said, I like fast, I like speed, I like a challenge, I can afford it. It said something about the 80s.
In the 80s, the Golf GTI made its owners feel different. But the truth is, you don't need a hot hatch to change personality. Anything with 4 wheels and an engine will do nicely.
I do get quite aggressive with people who are very slow and who are dithering or just stop in the middle of the road or don't pull over out of the way to look at their A to Z or whatever. I do get quite frustrated, and something comes over me that, you know, I've been known to give people the finger quite a lot.
My anger comes from driving up Streatham High Road. They've shortened the road, so there's only 2 lanes now, buses, so cars are just going into this great big bottleneck. And every time I drive up there, I get angry.
Well, what do you think it's there for?
It's there for emergencies and to alert stray sheep.
We all get angry in the car sometimes.
Do you beep?
But only a few of us get road rage.
I've got a crowbar on the back of my car. I'm going to bring it over here and shove it through your window. Don't you put it up when I'm talking to you. Will you listen to me? We could cut down Sunnyside and
I was in traffic in London. Apparently I'd done something wrong to these 2 men in a van. And they eventually come past me and pulled up in front and blocked me in from going up the road. And tried to get me out of my car, and I was in trouble, you know, so I locked all my doors and just knuckled down. And they were kicking it and trying to smash it. It was really scary, and that's where the idea of the song came from.
Here in my car, I feel safest of all. I can lock all my doors. It's the only way to live in cars.
My passenger flicked the V's out the window, and it just incensed this guy, and he just started chasing me over, went through a red light, chased me over the lights, and then eventually cut across me, got out of his car, came over, kicked the passenger window in, and tried to get my passenger out, was going to hit my anyway, it just went on. I couldn't believe why. What had I done? Nothing.
You get in a car, and every little bit of tarmac is precious. If anyone comes near it or cuts in front of you, you're willing to stab somebody for it.
Suddenly, it's showdown on the high street. Only this bumper-to-bumper confrontation led to more than just heated words. Tyres smoking, the woman driving the red Vauxhall on the right tries to shunt the white car out of its space. After reversing, Melanie Andrews pushes ahead with increased determination. The woman driving the white car is out of the vehicle. At the boot, trying to push back, is her 12-year-old son Dominic, before even he is forced to stand clear.
I'm normally quite a nice person, quite calm and respectful, and have quite a Buddhist attitude towards people, but sometimes it gets me.
Thanks, Gary.
Being stopped by a road rage is scary, but being stopped by the cops can be worse.
When you just see that blue flash in your mirror and you just think, oh, please don't let it be me, please don't let it be me. And you just lift off the gas and try and sort of lose some speed as quickly as possible, possibly pull the handbrake so he doesn't see your brake lights. And then when he whips in front, he's like, miss, pull on anything. It's just horror.
They pulled me up and, you know, pulled into the side of the road and got out of the car, and I did flirt with them.
What's wrong, officer?
Good afternoon. No, it all got quite relaxed. They decided not to charge me, and one of them turned around to me and he said, "You're lucky because you've got a lovely pair." And I just couldn't believe what he said. I said, "I beg your pardon, officer." He said, "You're lucky because you've got a lovely pair." And his mate realised what he said, and he went, "Of officers." So I don't know whether that was...
I've been, driving and somebody stopped me and said, who do you think you are, Sterling Moss? And I don't know whether he was being funny or not. And I said, well, yes, here's my license or something. Or
Also, when the cops aren't pulling you over, if they're just behind you a lot of times, you start acting like you're an arch criminal, like you've just robbed the First National Bank or you've got a dead body in the trunk.
You bastard.
As actress Gillian Tailforth discovered, getting naughty in a car wasn't as private as she thought it would be.
She'd wanted to prove she did not perform oral sex with her fiancé in a car parked on a slip road off the A1.
It's not nice, and I wasn't going to have that said about me.
No disrespect to Gillian, but I just thought blowjob in car, bit cheap. Wait till you get home.
Tailforth blew it in a lay-by, Hugh Grant even more famously in a BMW on Sunset Strip. You'd think the rest of us would learn from their experience, but no.
I was in a traffic jam a few weeks ago, and there was a couple in a very nice silver sports car with a rather luscious lady in it, giving her older partner a hand job. And I was looking down and she, for some reason, looked up and she smiled and I just went, naughty, naughty, naughty. And her partner looked up and then looked down very quickly and put his head in his hands.
We'd have all sorts of snogging games and heavy petting until I'd see the torch coming down the garden path. Great, Mum's coming! Pull trousers back on or clothes back on and sort of go in. But it was all exciting and very illicit and quite a giggle, really.
We were completely naked in the car, and suddenly this policeman turned up again with his torch. And he said... And he was just so, I'll never forget the look on his face. He was just so shocked. And he said, I can't believe it. And he said, what are you, wind the window, when we wound the window down, he said, look at you, you are completely naked. He said, you're completely naked. I said, I do seem to be completely naked, officer, you're absolutely right.
But even when there is no one looking, in-car entertainment can still present its difficulties.
This will be an experience you will never forget, Neris.
He didn't wind your window down.
No, I didn't. Look out, quick before he catches fire.
The problem I had was that I used to drive these vans around. The back of the van will be covered in clutch plates, clutch covers, exhaust pipes, batteries. Not conducive to, great romantic liaisons, really.
What I know about sex in cars is that there's two kinds of sex in cars. There's either backseat sex, which is really committed, because then you can't drive off very quickly, and then there's front seat, which is obviously much harder and less rewarding in many ways, but at least you can drive off very quickly.
We had places we parked for these purposes, various places around my little town, and it was very exciting indeed. And my 66 Chevy, too, had bench seats, like the old cars, no buckets, right? Harder to maneuver in a bucket, if you get my drift.
Excuse me, miss.
Oh, hello.
Is this your car?
It's my boyfriend's, really.
Well, I bet you've had some experience with
Oh,
it.
an awful lot. There's a lot of room in the back.
Does he have any complaints, or is he satisfied?
He should be.
Some people masturbate while they're driving as well in the car. I think they do.
You like a nice soft ride?
Pardon?
You like a nice soft ride?
Oh, you are awful. But I like you.
Because women are fantastic at multitasking. So a bit of makeup while you're driving along, bit of a wank. You can do it all. Whereas men can't even talk and drive at the same time.
I've experienced things in motor cars that are extremely delightful. At all kinds of crazy speeds as well. I think it's very important to have had sex at very high speed.
I was in this play in London, and we were invited to do a publicity stunt and go to, I think it was Snetterton racetrack. And we were going to be taken round the track, some of us. There was one rather swinging little girl who was a bit nutty. I don't know whether I should tell this story, but in fact it was true. This girl went round, and she came back. She was absolutely scarlet. She said, I had the most extraordinary experience. She said, I had a giant orgasm when we reached 150 or something. She was absolutely staggered. It was so exciting that it was orgasmic. I said, well, you were very lucky. It didn't happen to me.
Let's be honest, you don't need an off-road vehicle in Stoke Newington.
The urban 4x4, an idea that began in 1969 with the launch of the Range Rover. At first, they lived in the home counties, only venturing out for polo and Jemima's Gymkhana. Today, though, we're all in on it. The 4x4 is standard issue military equipment for Millennium civilians.
You're sitting up high, you're above the scrum of the traffic, you can see where you're going. There are all these little sort of noisy buzz boxes, competing underneath, but you are actually above it.
I live in LA, there's not one iota of unpaved space, and yet everyone drives a four-wheel assault vehicle, because you never know when you're going off-road in Hollywood.
You used to find it so amusing that these women think that it's so important that they drive, and they never go anywhere near a field.
The highest they've been is up a curb in Chelsea. But they send off this message that I'm rough and I'm tough and I can cope.
I don't really have a great problem with it. This may have something to do with the fact that in December I'm taking delivery of a brand new BMW X5, which is a huge four-wheel drive vehicle, which I have every intention of pounding the London streets with.
Hello. Jerry Ledbetter here. Now, I was just telephoning to find out whether I could have my car today. Oh, Tuesday. But what do you mean Tuesday?
Big car or small, we all break down sometimes, which makes dealing with mechanics top of the annoying things about cars list.
A bottleneck in the lube bay. What does that mean in English? Well, say lubrication then.
I still get stitched up in garages, and that really pisses me off. That they still have one over on me, because I really don't understand. I don't know if those disc brakes really need replacing.
No, you may not tinkle me back. I'll hold on.
Because it's a secret that they know that we're not privy to, but that some people can learn, and that clearly it's not that difficult to learn, because when you see the intelligence level of the people that are dealing with your car, often they're demi-morons or clearly inbreds.
Mechanics get us stressed, but they're not the only thing about driving that winds us up.
You know, some of those people have those dreadful magic trees, and they're always in minicabs. They have a kind of special brew and a magic tree, like they sort of cancel each other out. I don't get that, I'm afraid.
Young kids wanting to make a few bucks cleaning your windscreen, that's an invasion of your privacy.
I remember driving round a roundabout in Carlisle for 20 minutes with my boyfriend saying, until you tell me the correct exit to leave this roundabout from, I am not going to stop. And I'm like, I don't know.
It's usually in a van, like when they're like sort of taller, taller than you or whatever, and so they can look right into your car, and you really can feel someone looking down your cleavage. Not that I've got much cleavage, but you feel this sort of prying eyes on you.
Taking right liberties, that mob round here.
Voyeurs are one thing, clampers are another. To local councils, they're hard-working civil servants. To drivers, they're state-sponsored muggers.
It was on the King's Road, and there was a whole load of cars parked on this sort of single yellow line. I thought, well, everyone else is there, I'll park there. I came back, all the cars gone apart from mine with a big yellow clamp on it. How did that happen?
I mean, it's like somebody's died. You're sitting in your car and you're waiting to be unclamped. And people who pass you by will either humiliate you by kind of staring at you and shaming you, or as a real look of, just deep embarrassment. And how to deal with it, I don't know. I put makeup on, I sit and sort of just put makeup on and talk on the mobile, It's the only way to get around it. Read Hello magazine.
This poor chap is sitting in some sort of, what's it called? It's like a porter cabin thing. And I sailed in and I went, hello, come to pay my fine. And he was so blown away by the fact that I was being nice to him and that I wasn't giving him an earful, which presumably everybody does.
If you get your car clamped, they stick this big yellow sticker on the side of it saying, this car has been clamped and must not be removed without official consent. And this sticker takes about 3 months to peel off. It's like they exact their revenge slowly and daily before you can get this sticker off. And that to me is the biggest insult of the thing, I think.
In the new millennium, beautiful girls sell cars just like they always did. But something's different. Today, women no longer just sit on the product, they buy it too. 1 in 3 new models is now paid for by a woman. It's a lucrative new market for car retailers, and they know it.
The advertising agencies now are still peddling sex and cars. But it's different. It's politically correct sex. The woman is driving, the woman is in control.
I think it's just a reflection of society today, the fact that there are so many more financially independent women, that we are no longer beholden to our men to provide homes for us or a means of transport.
Today then, the car in front may well be driven by a woman. The question is, does she drive it like a man?
I absolutely loved my first car. It was a Vauxhall Nova, and although it was only a 1.2, it could pull off at the lights so fast. It was unbelievable. My dad had a 1.8 at the time, and we used to race each other off the lights.
and I always used to win in my 1.2 Nova. It was just brilliant.
There is no feeling for me than getting in a car and being able to be in total control of that car and make it do exactly what I want it to do.
Definitely. I mean, that Thelma and Louise thing about cars and driving, carrying on, is something I think any woman can relate to, because it's an empowerment, it's a liberation, it's just doing what you want, going where you want to go.
0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. That is motorbike acceleration. It is. I can't even describe to you what it feels like. It's a feeling. There aren't words to go with it.
People really do think women drivers are bad drivers, and it's not the truth at all. Women are much more cautious. Although I invite you to come to LA and watch a woman in an SUV drinking a coffee and talking on the cell phone make a left turn in front of you at 80 miles an hour.
An ex-boyfriend of mine said his previous girlfriend used to paint her toenails while driving the car. That was in America and it was automatic, but still, that's terrifying. Some Californian girl go, la 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 la, while driving.
Now it's the rule, isn't it? Women have as much fun as a man does. I'm all for it, actually. Aren't you?
No kick from champagne.
And the corner code's going to give them to pick you up the head with some...
Doesn't thrill me at all.
I was very, very drunk.
Tell me why.
The Hurlingham Club in London. And 100 years after we began driving, it seems that some people are back where we started.
Out of you.
The celebs are new, people like Yasmin Le Bon and All Saints Melanie Blatt. But the cars are old.
The grand days of cars like that have gone. And events like the one at the Hurlingham Club just sort of for one day take you back and make you realise how wonderful and that sort of era was.
Firebird 2 to Control Tower. We are about to take off on the highway of tomorrow.
In the 1950s, it was different. This film, produced by General Motors in America, saw the future of driving as a blissful odyssey into tomorrow. It didn't quite work out like that.
The biggest problem motoring has is that it holds out all kinds of promises, the promise of, pleasure and power and freedom, and yet it increasingly delivers less and less on those promises.
The same sense of independence and creating their own space, which the car gave people of my generation, is now given to teenage consumers by the mobile phone. That's their instrument of independence. That's the thing which creates their own networks and their own space.
Despite the misery of modern-day driving, though, the car continues to both thrill and define us, like nothing else.
For me, driving is independence, freedom, and an expression of my own power to do what I want and when I want to do it.
I was lucky enough to drive a McLaren F1 at 180 miles an hour. And that is just an incredible sensation. It's scary, it's exciting, it's powerful, there's a sort of sexual energy there. It's a top rush.
You'll get our cars away from us in America when you pull them out from under our desiccated corpses.
I love cars, I love the whole technical side of it, and driving fast is a very bad thing to do. Obviously, you shouldn't do it, shouldn't speed, but I love it.
You're one of the loveliest girls I've ever met.
I got quite well known for saying hello, which is, I don't know how it happened, but it did. And somebody's offered me a number for my car that goes hello. So I don't know. What do you think they'll charge me for that?
Next Thursday, Ford tells the story of the downfall of Jane Andrews, the once personal dresser of the very royal Sarah Ferguson. Details seconds away. Frasier's next, and Frasier's distraught. Something old and something new might just do the trick, reminiscing a life full of cheers. Ah, the poor fella.